Welcome back to Beyond the Bushels. Today we're joined by Tracey from Indiana. After spending a few years working at the local FSA office, a major turning point in her life led her back to the farm full time. She talks about what the transition has been like, what she's learning, and why she's all in on the farming life. I appreciate you joining. It's nice to meet you. We've talked a little bit on the phone, but I like to start off just hearing a little bit about you more on the personal side, your history, what you like doing outside the farm and all that good stuff. So if we could start off doing that, that would be awesome.
Yes, I have actually lived here most of my life for a while, had a different job before I came back to the farm. I worked for the farm service agency for a while and then came back here. And so it's really neat that I'm back here now because now I can be involved in some of the stuff I like to do outside of the farm. I have a community now that I'm really plugged in with and really involved with like livestock and livestock shows and that kind of thing. And it's really nice to be back here because I'm close to family. This is my house, but my parents live next door. So the farm's right next door. And then my grandparents live right across the road. So it's a pretty tight knit community, which is really neat.
Sounds like it. Do you have any hobbies you enjoy doing if you get off the farm?
Yeah, just anything outdoors, really. This is going to sound crazy, but my mom and I both hunt. So we do that in the fall. Love kayaking and being on water and that kind of thing. And it's really neat because the community around here, I have a lot of friends that are into that too. And then livestock, I've shown cattle, or I did show cattle in 4-H and all that. And so now on the farm here, we raise cattle. So get to be connected to that still. So that's work slash a hobby at the same time.
What kind of hunting do you and your mom do?
Just whitetail deer. Yeah, that's it. How about you?
Just about everything. Pretty cool you're into hunting. I'm really fond of how Indiana does it. You're in Indiana, right? The
Yep,
the
yep.
whole 1 buck state and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool. Iowa, you can kill 3 deer. It's a little too much. I like
Oh,
how
wow.
Indiana does it.
Yeah, it kind of saves some of the bigger bucks, I guess you could say, just having that limit and that kind of thing. Although somebody usually gets them.
Who shoots bigger deer, you or your mom?
My mom. Yeah.
Really? How's that happen?
Well, she's hunted longer than I have. She's known for getting big deer around here, which is cool.
Is your dad into hunting at all?
He still like enjoys that we do it. He's just so busy with farming. The season's hard for him to get out and go hunting. And it's hard for me. Luckily, we have rain days and stuff that I can go, or if it's too wet to be in the fields. He's the one that got mom started in hunting, actually.
Archery or gun?
Gun. We have a kid that works for us, and his dad's a big bow hunter. And he told me one day, he goes, what do you say? Something about how gun hunting's cheating, but that's how we hunt it. So
Well, if you have limited time, you gotta do the best you can.
probably.
A little bit of everything. Nothing against gun. I do that just as much as archery, but if I were to kill a big one, it would definitely be preferred to archery.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Very cool. It's very refreshing to hear about women that hunt and all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's fun to be out there for sure. I didn't get anything this year, actually, but it was just fun to go out.
It's a nice little getaway, isn't it?
Yep. It is. It's quiet.
I appreciate you sharing that. Could you
Yeah.
kind of walk us through? So you said you're farming full time and you had a full time job before. Did you go to college before you were working at the FSA?
Yes. So I started out actually going to, you might be familiar with Black Hawk East College in Kewanee. I went there. I got an ag transfer degree, but went there for livestock judging scholarship for that program. And that was really neat because I was able to get like my general education out of the way through Black Hawk and then transferred to Purdue my last 2 years and was on the judging team there too, but majored in ag business management and got a minor in agronomy. So did 4 years and then started with FSA.
Very nice. Are you still involved with the livestock, the judging and all that stuff?
I raise cattle, but I've probably done more hog shows than anything. So it's just funny how that works sometimes, but involved with that. And then on the show side, I help a couple families with calves throughout the year too. So that's fun.
It's very interesting. I got a niece and nephew that are 13, 14, and they've been showing a couple years, and it gets pretty competitive, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, there's all kinds of shows out there too, and for all different seasons. You definitely have to have a target one in mind just to kind of focus on one.
So you showed when you were younger, am I right?
Uh-huh. Yes.
What was your favorite part of showing when you're younger compared to now? And what are some of the changes you've seen in the show industry?
When I was younger, it was honestly a stress reliever, and it still kind of is for me to work livestock. It was part of my routine every day. We did the whole thing where you got up before daylight, got calves in the cooler room, did all of that. And it's a lot of work, but it also was a peaceful thing for me. So I really enjoyed that. And then the community that we had growing up, some of it was family, and then some of it was just friends that we developed through showing that I still have today. So that's what I loved about back then. Now, what's really rewarding to me and what I love is just being able to help younger kids do it. It's a whole different perspective on showing and working and that kind of thing. We have two younger girls. They are the daughters of one of our employees that show calves from us. And just seeing how much they love it. Also, the sibling part of it, my brother and I both showed. So it's fun to see how their dynamic is, how they work together, and that they love it. That's a really cool thing is they both really enjoy it. They didn't grow up with cattle. I think they had goats at one point and they have horses. So that's just kind of neat that they've developed a passion for it. And that makes it fun to help when the kids actually enjoy it too.
Did they get started because their dad, you said, worked for you? Is that kind of how they got into the cattle?
Yep, they would come with him to work and they would ride around with me with different things on the farm. And then some of that was chores. And when there's baby calves out there, they enjoyed helping with that. And I guess over time, I think maybe it was me that asked them, would you guys ever want to show one? And their dad was good with it. And it's been a thing ever since. So it's fun.
I'm always interested. I've been around it a little bit, not near as much as you. When you're training these calves to lead, what's the process you guys have down there in Indiana?
Yeah, so it's really a slow, consistent process, really. And that's the beauty of having two. I think Willow, I think they're in like fourth and sixth grade. So they're pretty young, but it's good for calves to be around kids that age to get them calmed down. But really, just starting out, having the girls go in there and just sit with them for a week and get them used to them. And then the next week we put a halter on them and just let them drag it around and consistently for a week. And then the next week we tried tying them up for a limited amount of time. So they were showing feeders, so babies. And so we had to wean the calves in between, also take them off their moms. That was a little interesting because I've never shown cattle so early, like right after we've weaned, but them being consistent and coming and helping, and we just increased every week doing something, and they ended up being real broke for them both by fair, and I think they had a lot of fun. They both made it out of their round for showmanship, which is really cool because, again, they're really young, first and second year 4-H members. I was really proud of them for sure.
Oh, that's a lot of fun, and hopefully they keep showing so you can see how they progress over the years.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. They've already been talking about next year, so that's exciting.
You still got the cooler on the farm?
No, we have the room where we had the cooler, but we don't have that. I've been hinting at maybe getting one back with Dad at some point, but no, we just do the consistent everyday stuff. But I would love to have one back again because it just makes things a little bit easier.
It's interesting to hear how people train them to lead. When we did it, it was wait till they're 900 pounds, put a halter on in the head gate and hold on. You hear about donkeys and all that stuff.
I've been thinking about a donkey too. We've never had one. I've heard that that helps the process quite a bit.
I can imagine the steer kind of goes wherever the donkey goes. The donkey doesn't really care what's behind it.
No, they're the ones in charge in that situation for sure.
You know, that was cool hearing about that. So how long have you been at the farm, Tracey?
It will be 4 years this fall, actually, which is crazy.
4 years, huh?
Yep.
And loving every minute of it.
I never envisioned being able to be back, but the opportunity definitely came up. And there's so much uniqueness about being able to live here, be involved with the farm, being close to family. It's definitely a blessing. So I am very grateful for the opportunity to be back.
What was the process of working full time at the FSA to coming back to the farm full time?
Sure. So I started with FSA in 2016 after graduating from college and just kind of worked my way up in there. Was a county executive director for a couple years and then in December of 2020, I took a job as the production adjustment chief for the state office for FSA. And so that had been the goal for a while within FSA, and just never imagined that would even be an open door, an opportunity because of how young I am. Usually to get into that role, I feel like it takes several years. I was hopeful, but not really expecting to get to step into that. So that was really neat. But then really everything changed about exactly a week after that. My brother was the one taking over and helping my dad with the family farm, passed away actually in a car accident just a half mile down the road from the farm a week after I had taken that job. It's wild, but something like that just really changes your perspective. And I still continued to work for FSA for 9 months actually after that. The unique part about the timing, that there was so much involved with the timing of all of that, but I was able to work from home because we were actually dealing with COVID. And then the FSA offices obviously had a lot of restrictions because being involved with government and that kind of thing. And so a lot of offices were working from home. In that role that I was in, I was able to work from home, which was a huge blessing because I wanted to be close to family as we worked and navigated what life would be like without Josh. And I would go down to the state office one day a week and work in the actual office in Indianapolis. Did that for 9 months, and there was a tug on my heart to be back. I would be working at a desk here at home and see tractors going by and seeing everybody doing stuff around the farm. Like there was a pull towards that. And I believe it was the Lord pulling me back to the farm to be closer to family, be able to help dad and navigate the newness of filling a loss that you really can't fill, but just helping in a new way, I guess. So I finally made that decision in September of 2021 to come back, talked to dad about it, and just said, I know there's things that you don't want to do that I could probably help out with. I kind of got his blessing for doing that and what he thought that I could fill as far as helping out. So made that decision and started in September and have been here ever since. So it's been a blessing for sure. It was hard circumstances to make that decision, but I couldn't be more grateful to be back for sure.
I'm really sorry you had to go through that. Never been in a situation.
Thank
I can't
you.
imagine how tough it is. I think you probably did the right thing. It sounded like your heart was telling you that you needed to come back to the farm. Sounds like you're pretty happy.
Yeah, for sure. The crazy thing, you learn so much going through that stuff. And one thing I learned is there's not right words for something like that. And it's helped me to navigate when other people have lost, because we kind of went through a stretch of our family, like knowing people that walked through that. And so after going through that, you're like, okay, I know that just being there and people knowing that goes a long way. So I totally get it. I don't know that I still have words for that kind of stuff either.
I haven't had to go through anything like that. I'm sure I probably will at some point, and a lot of people do it. I'm not trying to make you feel better about it.
Yeah, it definitely changed my perspective, but in a good way. And I know that sounds crazy to say, like something so horrible and hard, how there could be good that comes from it, but it's brought all of us a lot closer together. So that's a huge blessing.
And you mentioned something about helping other families or friends of family when they're going through something similar. And I'd heard through the grapevines you're doing a fundraiser or event. Are you kind of taking the tough times you went through and trying to use that to benefit others? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so in April of 2021, so it'd been like 4 months after Josh's accident, we got together, my parents and some family friends that were really close to my brother, and decided to put together the Josh Clifford Memorial Foundation. And so what that does is it raises money for young people pursuing agriculture, somebody that hasn't been involved in farming or ag for more than 10 years. That's the parameters we put on it. We have two components of it. There's a scholarship side and then there's a grant side. So the scholarships, they can apply for $1,000 scholarship to assist with pursuing a degree in either an ag trade or just an agriculture degree. And so we have that side of things. And then on the other side of things, we have the grant application process. And that is a little bit wider as far as what different things can be applied for. We have different categories like inputs, livestock, equipment, and there's an other category. And so what that does is provides funding for young people that are just getting started to pursue a business or an idea they have to have success in agriculture. So we started that in 2021 and have had an annual fundraiser every year to raise money for that. And then also part of that is we give out those scholarships and grants at the fundraiser.
That is very neat. Very neat that you're taking that and passing it on to, I won't say the next generation, but I know for someone wanting to get started in agriculture, it's definitely tougher for some than others, just finding that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And to keep Josh's legacy alive, there's a lot of different things that he loved as far as agriculture. You have the farming side of things, but he loved the cattle too. So just a neat way to give back in our community. The neat thing is it's reached beyond just Northeast Indiana. We've had people throughout the state or people that are pursuing degrees throughout the country apply to. So that's been really neat to see how it's grown.
I was going to ask you that. Is it condensed locally in terms of people that apply or be granted the scholarship or the grant, or is it starting to spread out a little bit?
Yeah, it is starting to spread out. I think the first year it was pretty local to Northeast Indiana. And then I think the second and third year was when we started to see kids throughout the state apply. Even beyond that, there's groups that have applied for grants, like the Noble County Livestock Judging Team is one we've given grants to. There's Oak Farm Montessori School, and they applied for a grant to get a cattle chute. So it's also extended to groups rather than just individual people, which has been neat to see. And then it is neat to look at on the scholarship side of things. Originally, it was kind of local Indiana schools that kids were going to, like Purdue and some of your local Ivy Tech. But I think this year we had Oklahoma State, a couple others like out west, Blackhawk. So it definitely has reached a farther area than we ever anticipated it would, which is awesome. I love that it's reaching more and more kids every year.
And I'm sure eventually, maybe you've gotten it to this point where everything kind of comes full circle. So maybe some of these people you helped start a company or whatever, they'll take off and then they'll start bringing back some of those funds to this. And I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we did have a grant applicant and recipient this year. She applied to start a greenhouse she had started recently. And part of her application was she wants to give back 15% of her sales at the end of this year, which I thought was just incredibly grateful and just awesome that someone her age would have the idea to do a business like that and then also want to give back. Just was really neat to get her application and even meet her when we gave out the grants.
At that age, that's pretty incredible.
It is, yeah. It's so encouraging to see people pursuing at that age what they're pursuing, because in the news you hear all the negative about the next generation, and I think there's a stigma that they try to make you worry about the future. But one thing that this foundation has been really neat for us as a board, and I think people in our community to see, is there's a lot of good in the next generation, especially for agriculture. So it's been a blessing to be able to see that for sure.
I can imagine. What are some of your favorite stories that have come out of the people that you've helped?
Well, that is a great question. There's been a lot of really neat recipients for sure. I really love, this year we had some really, really young kids apply for grants. And that was just really neat to see that they're already thinking about and planning for their future. And so we had 2 younger kids this year that applied for show supplies, gates, a couple other things to replace equipment that they lost actually due to a barn fire. And so that was just super neat to be able to give back to them. They went through something hard like we did, and that was really rewarding. I'm trying to think, this is our fourth year of doing this, so there's so many of them, like the Noble County Livestock Judging Team. That one's near to my heart because I did livestock judging, and Josh actually did too for a little bit of time in high school. And that's not always the easiest thing for coaches to put together, is funding. Costs money for gas and traveling and hotels and all of that. So being able to give back, that was the full circle moment for me. There's also been applications for a foundation female for different herds of livestock, for cattle, sheep, goats. Josh was really involved in the cattle and started his own herd, and we put some of our own heifers back into that herd. So that also has been a full circle thing for all of us, because that really connects to what Josh was involved in. It's just neat how I feel like the Lord just lines stuff up like that. And we couldn't have planned any of this ourselves. It just kind of has fallen into place and been a huge blessing.
It sounds pretty incredible what you're doing. I'm curious, you don't have to tell me how many applicants versus how many people get grants, but I'd be curious to hear about that process. Are you meeting with people in person, or do you have so many of them where it's just going through paperwork?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think we are actually going to transition our process a little bit. And we're talking about that right now. We need to do that because our pool has gotten so big from year to year. Our first year, our pool was a little bit smaller, and so the decision-making process wasn't as difficult. This year, I think we had 20 grant applicants. So what our process is right now is we sit down as a board and go through all the we actually all go through them before we even sit down, because it's a lot of reading and that kind of thing, and then rank them each individually, and then get together and then come up with a consensus. But now that we have so many applicants and our pool is going beyond just Northeast Indiana, we actually are talking about different ways to even make the ranking process a little simpler. We've talked about possibly doing an interview process, just because you get such a better feel for who somebody is and what they're actually seeking funds for. And then on the scholarship side, we're also talking about maybe doing a couple different things, possibly doing one scholarship that goes to an individual for all 4 years, something like that, like $1,000 every year or something along those lines. But we are talking about changing that process, which is a great thing to have to change it, because the amount of interest we've got, which is beyond what I ever imagined the reach would be. It's really cool. And I love that we're still impacting the local community as well, but it's just really neat to have that impact and help the next generation in a wide array of areas.
Sounds like you're doing something pretty special there. It's been a pleasure hearing about it. So you're getting more applicants. Are you getting more companies willing to join forces with you and support this cause?
Yeah, that has been another huge blessing. I think even really from the get-go, we've had a lot of support, not only just local families and farm families, but there are a lot of businesses that started out. And then as I've gotten more involved with the farm and made connections with different ag businesses, I've been able to bring some of those in, which is really neat. And the process has been a blessing, how smooth that process has went, because that process of asking for money isn't really my thing. We've had a lot of people just willingly and out of the kindness of their hearts want to help out with it. And it's made it a lot easier to bring that all together. So between myself, and then we have another board member, her name's Mandy Young. She's really good about talking to people in the community. Between her and I, it's just been awesome to be able to make that process more effortless than I thought it could be. To me, it was going to be very overwhelming, but it's been really good. And we're always looking for more, of course, getting more ag businesses involved, because as we get more applicants, we want to be able to give out more as well. But I'm hopeful that just continues from year to year and that those connections can be made.
Hopefully, by sharing your story on this podcast, I know you're probably only the fifth one. We might not have that many listeners, but people will go back and hear about this and hopefully want to join forces.
This is really neat what you guys are doing. I didn't really know what it was, honestly, and I haven't really heard of a lot of podcasts to just share your story. So that's really neat that you guys are doing that.
Do you feel good about where you're at on the farm? Do you feel comfortable with everything at the farm? Do you have to make adjustments between you and your dad on maybe your brother was doing repairs or something like that that you're not comfortable with? Do you feel good about where you're at on the farm?
Yeah, and gosh, that's just a blessing to be able to say yes, because it did take time. It wasn't a snap of the fingers process, and I had an adjustment to make because I went from a role of being manager, supervisor to kind of starting from the bottom as far as just learning. I've been involved with the farm my whole life, but not directly like that. It really was a humbling experience for me and took a while to figure out what my role was going to be. I had to let go of a lot of things because as a manager, I still manage certain things alongside dad now. Going from a manager to just being a part of, I would say, our farm team, I had to really learn and figure out where I fit as a manager before and how I was trained to involved a little bit in everything. I would say I do have that a little bit with a farm now. A farm operation is so vast and there's so many things to accomplish. Things change every day and you really can't be, I don't know if I'm saying this the way that I'm thinking it, but it works better when you each have your own skill set and then it comes together. It just took a while to figure that out for me. And so that was a little bit of an adjustment because I think at first I thought I had to just fill everything that was missing as far as my brother. And that's impossible. Nobody can exactly fill his role, first of all. So that was such a good life lesson for me, is just to learn that. It was hard just to have to take a step back and be like, okay, like you said, we have different skill sets. So I'm not as strong as my brother was. I can't do all of those repairs that he would be able to do. And so, really, there was a good year or two where just being available and observing and jumping in where I felt that I could. That's how the first 2 years worked. It was great as far as just getting experience and learning where I fit. Now, coming into the third and fourth year, I really feel like I've got such a better set of organization for what I know needs done, because that's another aspect of it, is learning what needs done when and prioritizing all of that. Now that I've been through a few cycles of it, it's like, okay, we have, I don't know, like an example would be FSA farm certification is July 15th. Like, I know I've got to get that done. Taxes are in the spring. I know I have to get that done. Just knowing the cycle has been huge, and knowing what to prepare for, because that's the one thing you can prepare for in farming, because there's so much you can't. You have weather, you never know what that's going to do, and that can change a lot of different things about your day. I now know the things at least that I can prepare for and when they happen, and it just makes life a lot easier. So that's a long way of answering your question, but I definitely feel so much better about my role now.
Do you feel like there's just a giant weight on your shoulders, or is your dad good about walking you through that? Because I don't know your situation. I've heard it, but when I heard your story and envisioned myself in that situation, I just see myself going back to the farm and just feeling like I have to do everything and the whole farm is on my shoulders. Do you feel like that at all? Or do you and your dad communicate enough where it feels like a team effort to fill in the void there?
Yeah. So I would say when I first came back, and I would say probably the first year or two, I definitely felt that. And it's taken some time for that weight to lift. But I definitely think that's been like one of the biggest lessons and blessings of all of this. Honestly, for me, it was letting go of control, surrendering all that, trusting in the Lord that He's going to take care of it. And just by doing that alone, that weight has lifted so much. And part of that is also just trusting in the people that we have around us. I think in my head, when I first stepped into this, when you lose somebody like that, it becomes so much more real. Like the reality of, you can lose somebody any day of your life. It just became so real. So that weight felt huge at that point. But there's just a lot of learning to trust that I've had to do throughout the last 4 years, and learning to trust the people around us. This is just a big example of how God works, but let's see. The fall before my brother passed away, they were good family friends of ours. Their last name's great, but Ryan, he was working, I believe, at SDI, which is steel company here locally before, and wanted to get back into farming. Their family farms some too. And so we actually brought him on full time that fall before the accident, obviously not knowing what was coming at all. And so that was just totally a God thing that he was with us, because he's a huge part of our operation, mechanically, running equipment, and pretty much everything. He's a very good resource and person to have. So that was a blessing. And we've got a lot of part-time help that are great team players. And so for me, part of that weight being lifted was just learning to trust the people I had around me. We're just very fortunate that we have really, really great people that work for us. And it's more even than just like employees, it's family. Once I surrendered, like, just take one day at a time and trust the people you have around you, that weight did come off. And that's been a huge blessing, because that's a big weight that I don't think anybody's really probably meant to carry. But it's been a good lesson in the whole journey of things. And it helps me now, like dealing with other situations, like just letting go of control, like control what you can, obviously, but there's so much in this world that we can't. And just surrendering and letting God take care of the rest has been a huge weight off my shoulders for sure.
So how is your relationship with your dad? I'm sure it's really good now, and with what you've gone through has gotten better. Were you guys pretty close even before you came back to the farm?
Yeah, I would say it definitely has gotten stronger and closer. Dad and I have always been close, kind of how our dynamic worked before Josh even passed away. Josh and my mom were always really close, and then Dad and I have always been really close. And not that I'm not close with my mom too, we're all very close now, but then with that circumstance, definitely between that and then just coming back to the farm, we are very close. And it's been a blessing too, because part of what I was worried about, I guess, coming back, well, how do I separate being a daughter and him being my boss and that kind of thing? And I feel like there's been a pressure that's been relieved in that too, as we've learned, especially as I've learned my role within the farm and that kind of thing. That pressure is really off. I think I thought too that like you had just to completely separate the two, and you don't. There's parts of being his daughter in the farming operation that I can read him and read what he's wanting or needing to happen for that day a little bit better, because I am his daughter. So I think there's probably, from the outside looking in, even me like looking probably at other businesses where there was family dynamics, I think you could sometimes automatically think of it as a negative thing, but really for us, I think the positives have outweighed the negatives for sure, just because you know each other better than, somebody does probably in your typical business. It's been a blessing for sure.
Was your dad, when you made the decision to come back to the farm, being in his situation, was he overprotective? I can imagine how things would change for him. Was there any situation where he's trying to protect you by not letting you come back to the farm? Or does he get protective of you on the farm with what you do and what you don't do?
Yeah, I'm trying to think like how it was when I first started. I think he was pretty protective at first as far as like certain things equipment wise, and just as far as like safety, and your dynamics different with a daughter versus a son. So we navigated that a little bit. But now I think we've learned each other enough in the farming side of things to know like he knows if I can handle certain things and will just let me go do it, and vice versa. So I would say we had a little bit of that at first, for sure. And I still think we do a little bit. There's a lot of things that can go wrong pretty easy. And I am sure you know that, but there's a lot of risk and that kind of thing. The dad-daughter type of thing, there are things where, I don't know, a good example would be like if a big piece of equipment gets stuck or something like that. And he's definitely protective in that, like, okay, they'll step in, get it out, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think we'll always probably have that a little bit for sure.
What's your favorite job on the farm? Favorite season or activity?
I absolutely love harvest. That's my favorite season for sure. Planting's fun too, and obviously that has to happen for harvest to happen, but there's something about fall and harvest. One thing that's neat about harvest is, and this is going to sound so simple, but we're all together more. Planting, we're spread out. a lot more. We have 2 bean planters going, 1 corn planter. And so I'm kind of running around keeping people going, that kind of thing. Harvest, we're all together. The semis are at the field. We run both combines in the field. We all eat lunch together in the field. So it's easier to communicate too. You're all same place usually. Obviously, the semis are going back and forth, but I just love that. And then run the combine sometimes. That is fun. I have my own field up north of where our farm is that I bought in 2021. And last year we were harvesting and my dad had to go check something like in a bin. And so I was running it, but he was sitting beside me. You just feel more peace when he's there if something goes wrong. But all of a sudden he gets out and he's like, okay, you're on your own. So I did that for a little bit on my own and it went pretty good. That was a really neat moment between him and I too, just because he was like, okay, you can do it. I'm going to go take care of something else. But that was a lot of fun.
Was it corn or beans?
It was corn.
Corn. Yeah, corn. You could do beans. I'm sure you could. Corn's definitely a little easier. It's funny how it seems like the further you get along in each growing season, it gets a little easier in terms of stress or whatnot. Yeah, harvest is stressful if things aren't looking good, but it's just where everything comes together and you can just sit there and let it all come together. And it is a lot of fun, isn't it?
It is a lot of fun. And just as you combine, you're seeing your progress. You're taking it off. It's coming out of the field. And it's just the finality of everything you've worked for that year. So it's neat.
Do you have any early memories when you were younger, middle school, riding in the combine with your dad?
Oh, yeah. Even probably younger, like you said. I think when both my brother and I were probably more elementary, we were out there quite a bit riding with him. You'd fall asleep usually in the combine or the planter. And those are some good memories for sure.
The recurring theme with the kids riding in equipment, the people I've interviewed and asking them, was there always a cooler full of snacks in there for you?
Oh, yeah. This is something that's never changed over the course of time, but there's always candy in the combines. If you don't find something, there's something wrong. So that has not changed from then to now.
What kind of candy do you have stockpiled?
My dad, he always has, as far as I can remember, he likes paydays. Paydays and Reese's. And Reese's are a big thing for me.
Reese's?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a hard time.
Yeah.
Everybody calls it a little bit different. We call it Reese's.
Oh, really? That's
You might
funny.
be saying that right, but
Yeah, that's interesting. It is interesting to hear different things people call, like how they say things.
I don't know why you're talking about sweets. I got a big sweet tooth, but I used to work with a buddy. I think he's in Fort Wayne. I doubt you know him, but maybe you do. But we'd work and we'd go to Puerto Rico and we'd be pollinating corn or whatever, and we'd sit in a hot tub. And I was talking about chili or something. I'm like, man, have you ever tried dunking a cinnamon roll in chili? He's like, what?
Oh my gosh.
You're gross. And I'm assuming you haven't tried it either.
No, that's
So it's
funny.
an Iowa, Minnesota thing. 2 weeks later, he's like, I'll never be able to eat chili without a cinnamon roll again. So cinnamon roll and chili, try it. I bet your family would like it. It's just a perfect combination of sweet and savory.
Yeah, I'll have to mention that to Dad. He'd probably try that.
What are some other of your favorite memories from your younger years as a kid?
I would say, and it's crazy that I can remember this far back, but actually the beginning of our involvement in agriculture, Dad's always been involved in agriculture. And so when I was 5, he milked dairy cows, actually. And I think he enjoyed it. It just ended up being a lot with as much as he grew in the grain side of things. So I loved when he milked, though, and I was always out there with him and always exploring outside. And it's just crazy because I was only 5, but I remember a lot of memories just being in the milk house, and it's just always stuck with me since then. And actually, that's really, strangely enough, where my love of cattle came from. He always had dairy beef that he was feeding out, and I was always out there, and Josh was too, but there's something peaceful about that to me, and I've always loved being around him ever since.
You ever gonna get back into milking cows?
I don't know if we will.
It's a tough business.
It is. Yeah, I definitely have a soft spot for the people that do it because it's hard work and it's definitely needed. But where we're at as far as the grain side of things, And I guess I know a lot of people hire help out too, but when we're busy during planting and harvest, it's 12 hours a day, sometimes more. So it would be really tough to do both.
And you hear and see that smaller farms are consolidating. And I think the milk industry happened right before our eyes. You get those big farms out in New York or probably Wisconsin or California that are autonomized, where the cows just come in and go around the reel. Now that you mention that, as a kid, there's definitely a fair amount of small milking farms locally, and none of them are really around anymore.
Even the smaller ones, smaller like as far as when I was younger here, I think a lot of them have gotten the robots now. I don't know that there's a ton that do it without these days.
Is there a fair amount of milk production in your area, or just a few smaller ones?
Northeast, I would say there's a couple small to medium sized ones. And I don't know if you've heard of Fair Oaks Farms. That's over to the west. It probably is pretty close to the Illinois-Indiana line. They're a pretty large scale dairy operation. I'm sure there probably are more bigger ones throughout the state than I know other than that one, but that's one I can think of. There are some big ones around.
I don't know if I know of any milking operations in Iowa. I'm sure once you get up closer to Wisconsin, there's some. I can't think of one right offhand.
I'm guessing a lot of it out there is more just straight beef production.
Yep, and it's pockets. So where I grew up, my dad and brother, I think they're 4,000 head of feedlot cattle. Within our area, you could go 10 miles any direction, and there's probably 20 different feed yards. Then you might go half an hour south, and it's a ghost town. There's definitely a lot of hog barns in Iowa, just random hog barns. I don't know what it is, if it's just we got a Tyson plant. I know Hormel is like an hour away from where I grew up. A lot of it's just custom feeding, as far as I know.
Okay.
Do you guys have a lot of in Indiana?
Yeah, I don't know like what the number would compare to like out in Iowa, but it does seem like there are a couple like around my town, and then actually where I was the manager for the FSA before in Adams County. So that'd be like an hour south of here. It seemed like there were quite a few hog and turkey barns around that area. So I don't know. I'm guessing there's somewhere that they're maybe contracting to.
Turkey barns?
Turkeys and I think chickens too.
You see some of that in Iowa, not much. There's a small local one. I think I shared the story on another podcast where they'd hire us out as kids, and we'd have to go out there after dark and catch the capons and load them to the truck, and not very fun. You couldn't pay me enough to do that now.
No, I don't think I would want that job.
So back to you. Since you've kind of taken over leadership at the farm, was there ever a moment where it was like, gosh, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, I would say the first year or two, I was kind of like, was this the right decision? Just because it was just so different. I think in my head, I thought that it would line up a little more with the structure of what I did before, even though they're two different things. In the FSA office, there's different things every day too, but it's just a totally different set of circumstances. In farming, I've grown up around it my whole life. You would think I probably had a better understanding, but I guess until you live and walk through it, it's not as much of a reality. But there's just so much that is outside of your control. And I had to learn to just trust that because, gosh, the first year we had like a really, really wet fall. And so my role that fall was like pulling the combine head around, getting it hooked up, that kind of thing, which now is a piece of cake for me. But that first year, it was very wet. You have to get used to pulling those things and their weight and that kind of thing. So I can't tell you how many times I ended up stuck and I'm like, what am I doing? And just it felt overwhelming to even pull like a head that long down the road and that kind of thing. And it's just the newness of it. Like I think many things, like you start something new and it's uncomfortable. And I feel like you think it's always going to be that way. The only remedy I found to that was to keep going. And there's still always going to be different circumstances that pop up. The next year you could have a drought and you have totally different things to navigate. But I can say now, if we have a wet fall, I know how not to get stuck and that kind of thing. So yeah, at first I was just like, this is way beyond what I even expected. But God's been so gracious just as we have continued to grow and I've kept going with it. Things have gotten easier and flowed a lot better. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Sounds like you're getting it figured out. How was your dad in that situation where you kept getting it stuck? Or even the employees, were they giving you a hard time? It's a stressful situation, so I'm sure tempers can flare, but hopefully they're easy on you that first year.
Yeah, everybody actually really was very gracious because we all were just trying to figure it out. My dad had this side of it, like he was just trying to figure out how to navigate without my brother there. Yeah, at points just kind of laughed about it because it's like, what else do you do? And things just happen at some points. So everybody was really good. And it was just a new set of circumstances for all of us. So it wasn't like it was just me learning to navigate something new. We were all in that boat trying to figure out how things were going to work.
You probably don't get stuck near as much, do you?
No, I don't think I have really, maybe once since then. So I feel like once in 4 years is probably pretty good.
You're doing pretty good. So we talked a little bit about your start to the farming operation. Where do you see things going in the future? Do you feel like you're going to be the one shaping the future of the farm? Where's your dad in the situation? I don't know how old he is and the transition plan, but be interested to hear a little bit about the future. I'm sure it's probably tough to think about sometimes.
Even since Josh's passing, we have restructured a little bit as far as like before they just ran everything under their individual names. So dad had his farms and then my brother had his farms. And now since all of that happened, we actually formed a corporation. And so that kind of sets up a succession plan and just protects the interests of the farm. And then as far as the future, I don't know 100% what it looks like, but this is my plan to be involved. And Dad and I have talked about it. And I think he's not somebody that can just sit. So I don't know that he'll ever retire. His plan is probably just to keep being involved as long as he can. So whatever that looks like, I hope it's for a very long time because he's got years and years of wisdom that could be gleaned from.
That's awesome that you guys have such a good relationship. How many employees did you say you guys have on the farm?
We have a lot of part-time, full-time. There's pretty much 4 of us. And then during planting and harvest with all of our part-time help, we typically have 9 to 10 people, depending on, some of them work other jobs too. There's days, like if we're in corn, we try to have 3 semis going, so it could be usually around 10 people. That's one thing I kind of worried about. And I think a lot of farms are in this situation, just having enough help when you need it. But thankfully, we've been really fortunate in that area. We do have a lot of mid to older age employees, but we are starting to get a couple younger ones. So that's encouraging also.
Is it pretty consistent year over year? And I mean the same people, or is it a new crowd every year?
Actually, it's pretty consistent. The only changes I would say is we've had a couple guys that have reached their retirement with whatever they've been doing before that want something to do in those busy seasons. So we've brought a couple more on as time has went on. But a lot of them have stayed consistent from year to year too. So that's nice too, because you know who you're working with, can trust and that kind of thing. So it's been good.
And it sounds like consistent year over year, but once harvest kicks in, they're there every day. You're not scrambling to find somebody to fill in the grain cart and all that good stuff.
Yep. I think the good thing is about the crew that we have, they know when that time period starts, we need all hands on deck and everybody's willing to do that. So it's been really good. It definitely is helpful when you have just extra hands consistently.
Man, farming's tough. I think you talked about a little bit earlier, and I was going to say it, but I kind of forgot, or we got on something else. When you're younger, you just see farming as grunt work. You're just out there working hard and everything will work out. But the hard work is probably just like 25% of everything, with selling commodities, getting grain in on time. Is that something you can realize from when you were a kid and maybe didn't have the expectation of coming back to the farm to when you actually had to step in?
Yeah, I don't think I had the understanding when I was younger of just the strategy that comes with all your grain marketing. Dad just did it and he didn't really talk much about it. So you didn't see that side of things. Another side of thing is the financial side and planning, like when you market your grain, because you have these bills due, and being prepared for different cycles or just being prepared for if yields aren't good. And I didn't have an understanding for that when I was younger, and thankfully I do now. But I think the hard part about that is the public or our culture outside of ag probably has that perspective that I did when I was younger. So I try to explain that to people if I have the opportunity, that it is a lot more than what you just see in the field. We've even had like family that probably didn't fully understand. Luckily, I think a lot of them have asked questions and have a better understanding now. But even as I transitioned from FSA to farming, at first, a lot of them were like, so what do you do? Do you just run the tractor? And it's like, oh man, there's so much more to it than that. That is a big role in it, but gosh, there's a lot of that that doesn't happen without 5 other people's different parts that make that happen. So
It's just so technical when you think about just planting, for example, how technical you have to be on right conditions, seeding depth, having the right hybrid where it needs to be, having the right population, the right fertilizer mixes, the right chemical mixes. There's a lot of science behind it.
yeah, and I think that's the thing. A lot of people, like with my dad, gosh, he's got so much wisdom on that kind of stuff, but he's really quiet. So I don't know that a lot of people that don't know him would know that he just has the depth of knowledge that he has, because they don't see all of that goes into it. But there is so many components to that. And you really got to pay attention to those things, because your end goal is to have good yields. And there's a lot of factors that influence that.
And the interesting part is, I say it's science, but nobody will ever figure out the science because every year's so different. It's like science that'll never be figured out.
Yeah. And the weather impacts a lot of that. And yeah, you think you got it figured out, and then the next year's just completely different.
Even with nitrogen, for example, maybe 20 years ago, they're like, oh, you need this many gallons per bushel or per acre. Then they bumped it up. Now they're saying, okay, maybe you don't need that much nitrogen. You got to stay on top of your game.
Yes. Yeah, that is completely true.
I never did ask you, what generation farmer are you?
So, third, actually. My dad, he grew up actually with his uncle, but his uncle farmed, taught him everything. Then dad, and then, yeah, so be third.
Yeah, it's so cool hearing how people got started and how it's passed down. The last couple of people that I've interviewed were probably our age, and they weren't that good about the history. But I don't know if you listen to that episode with Laura, she had it nailed down. And it's just interesting to think about the farm over that many different generations and that many years. And what have you experienced in 4 years? Now take that over 100 years, the good years, the bad years, what it takes to keep a farm operation going. It's just incredible. The farmers don't get enough credit.
No, and it's just amazing. You hear about stories like 5th and 6th generation farms, and it's just neat. Like, it's changed and evolved so much, but it's continued with the same family.
It's interesting, the last, maybe it's 2 episodes ago, where the first 2 generations were just kind of, I wouldn't say hobby farms. They're just kind of satisfied making a good income. Then this kid I interviewed, his dad came in, he's like, man, let's take this to wherever, and just exploded it. So all it takes is just one generation to blow things up and make a giant operation. But unfortunately, one generation can mess it up pretty quick too.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's very true as well.
So a couple more things here. The last 4 years coming back to the farm, and it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to farming, but what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in life or at the farm since coming back?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I've probably mentioned it a little bit, but just to kind of make it even clearer, probably is just surrender and letting go of control. And that's probably like a answer opposite to what our culture might say in running a successful business or that kind of thing. But gosh, just by surrendering and yielding to the Lord's process and making it all happen, when I let go of trying to like control every little thing, because that was actually my job before, is making sure everything was in line. And by letting go and managing what I could and letting the Lord fill in the rest of the gaps, I feel like our farm just flowed so much better. And it's been a huge lesson in life for me. Like, that doesn't just apply to the farm, but it's been in like every aspect of my life, personally and just in other like organizations that I've been involved in. So I would say that's been a huge life-changing lesson for me. And I wouldn't have got that, I don't think, without being back here in the specific set of circumstances that.
I always kind of relate it to, maybe it's not the exact situation, but relate it to teachers. So if a teacher teaches a class all year and they all fail, it's not the student's fault that they aren't smart. Somebody just didn't teach them. So if someone doesn't trust the people around them, whether it's a dad letting somebody else step in and he can never build that trust, it's not the kid's fault. It's the teacher's fault. If I have a kid someday and I don't trust them, it's probably my fault for not putting them in a good enough situation where I'm confident in them.
Wow, yeah, that's a great
Your
example.
situation's a little bit different.
That is so true, though. There's people around us for a reason, and I'm very thankful. As you trust more and more and as you build that relationship, I think things flow a lot more as well.
And as you build trust in people, you're more comfortable with them doing stuff. But if you build that relationship and that connection, it's like an old coach. If you build a bond with an old sports coach, you've all seen the teams that just want to run through a brick wall for their coach. And it's same for being an employer too.
Yeah, there's like a sense of loyalty also.
Yep. Definitely some great conversation. I think it'll be good for people to hear your story, and the more talking to you, hopefully we can get this out in front of people and get more people willing to help out the foundation. So we're doing a revolving game from episode to episode, and it's called Pass the Mic. Where do you see the genetics of crops, let's say 20 years from now? So just general crop genetics influencing crop production in the next 10 or 20 years.
Just from the little I do know and what I've learned over the last 4 years, I think there's going to be a lot less variables that we have to control that we are controlling for right now. And so I think as genetics evolve from year to year, 10 years from now, I wonder if we're going to have to worry about, like you mentioned before, they're recommending less levels of nitrogen. I'm wondering if that's going to be as much of even a factor in 10 years. So I would say maybe have to spray for less. There's a lot of different things that we're mixing together. And I know there's all kinds of different opinions of that in itself, but I think I would really hope for that too, as genetics evolve, that we don't have to spray and have to control as much on the pest side of things. So I don't know what it looks like, but I hope that that's where we evolve to as time goes on.
That was such an experienced veteran answer.
Well, I'm glad it sounded that way.
For real, you're starting to see it now where I don't know how things are in Indiana. Back home, like 4 years ago, it was really dry all season and nobody was expecting a good yield, and yields were record yields.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're talking about. And that was such a educated answer, like experienced answer. I really like that.
Okay. Good. I hope that's what happens. We'll see.
Well, the easy answer would have been higher yields, but what kind of question would you have for the next guest? I don't have one lined up, but if you could ask the next guest any question, what would it be?
I would say, what areas do you think that agriculture will grow in the next 10 to 20 years? And what areas do the next generation need to step up to fill where the agriculture industry has changed over the next 10 to 20 years? Hopefully it makes sense what I'm asking.
It was definitely a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, this was great. When you sent the email, I really didn't know what this was. So it's just neat that people are getting to tell their story. That's awesome. And everybody's story is different.